Well, it was actually Bruce that got me involved.
Really?
He was, as you may know, he wasn't a good student. So we had a little settee and sat down. I told him if he could get straight B's, I'd get a horse for him because he just loved the horses and he wanted one so bad. Well, I forgot all about it. He came back with straight A's. We went out looking for a horse.
Really? That's how you became the horse conglomerate that you are today because
Well,
of
he,
Bruce?
he pulled us in. He pulled us in. He just loved animals, and he started with a horse, and then all the moms and dads stand around the rail, and one foot after another, back and forth. Someone said, why don't we all buy a horse and we'll all go together? Well, that's fine. I don't particularly know anything about it, but we did. I went and bought the horse, but no one wanted to go in.
So, so you bought the horse, and now you ended up owning racetracks. How does that happen?
Oh, the racetrack? Well, my wife had died, and I had never been to Kentucky to see the Derby. So I went down there one day, and the first two people I met were Joe Joyce and Sheldon Robbins. They were running Arlington Park out here, but then Arlington Park had been sold to Gulf and Western, and they said they were putting together a syndicate, and they would like to have me join. Well, what they're really doing, looking for some money. So I told them no. But about the fifth race, I said, okay, 10% and nothing more, but don't bother me anymore. A week later or so, they called me. Oh God, it was a month later. They said, we're down at the lawyer's office. We're signing the contract. We're ready to go. Come on down. I said, no, you just tell me what I owe, and I'll bring my 10%. Come on down here. Well, I got down there. No one had any money. So I had to pay for the whole thing. And that's how I ended up owning a racetrack.
That's fantastic.
It was not planned, and it was not by love. It was not anything else. We had to keep an obligation. They had already made the obligation that they would buy. I didn't know that they didn't have any money to do it, though.
That's great. That's great. Let's try this real quick. My eyes aren't what they used to be. So let's talk a little more about Bruce. Tell me a little bit about his career. What do you remember about how his first love and his first horse? How did he get to being a champion?
Well, first of all, he loved horses. But he loved all animals, but horses were at the top of the list. He started that when he was maybe in 7th, 8th grade, and he never stopped. And he'd bring home the cats, dogs, everything. Whatever had 4 legs or was an animal, he brought home. But the horse was the main thing. Then after he got his horse, we couldn't keep him away from the stables. He was there every day. Didn't know how much about riding, but he was taking lessons every day. It just stayed with him. The horse was his whole life. Beside the people, the horse people who were around him. That was his life.
Did you go down to the, what do you think about them having a field named after him now?
Well, Bruce had cancer, and he was dying. But he had one home in Aiken. He always felt he wanted to leave something behind, and he knew his life was shortened up, but didn't realize it was this short. And when some property became available, he bought it. And he said, that's the place for the horse shows. So we can make Aiken a very fine community, just like the thoroughbreds did 40 years ago. Everyone came into Aiken. But now they've got the racetrack there, they've got the polo there, they've got everything you want. They'll have the horse shows. But our horse show grounds and facility is going to be the very best there is, because we know what's new, we know what we could do, and we just love the horses, and we love to have the people come. It worked out that way. They went right up to the top when they built the track. I didn't think it'd go that fast, but Bruce knew a lot of horse people. This was not a neighborhood getting together and saying, let's have a racetrack. He picked out people from the Olympics, from all the different people, the people that really understood the very best there was in horse, the hunter and jumper class. and they went up all the way through up to the Olympics. You know the story of the Olympics.
No, no, I don't. Tell me the story.
Beg pardon?
I don't. Tell me the story of the Olympics.
Well, he always wanted to be in the Olympics, and he got that way. But then his cancer prevented him from going the last show, so he had his trainer take his horses over there, and the cross country, the first Americans ever to get a medal. Bruce was gone by that time, but I know he was watching though. It was one of his dreams, and the other dream was a horse park. I didn't know they were going to call it Bruce's Field, though. I had no idea. They down there told me that. But I knew he was going to put one up, and he planned for it. He got the people around him. He surrounded himself with the best in the industry because he knew who was good and who wasn't, who was there because of love of horses, and who was there sort of a commercial basis. And he thought you could put the two together, but you had to love horses or you wouldn't be there.
Do you think Aiken loves horses? Tell me about Aiken.
Well, I don't know that much about Aiken, but at one time they had, I guess, a lot of the East Coast people. They were going down to Florida with their racehorses, and they developed the racetrack down the training track. It was a good place to stop. It's about halfway between New York and Florida, and it was a wonderful place to be and gather. And it was rather sophisticated, but it was basically a horse town. And I think it was the horse town that really put it on the map. They had many other things, but this was a nice general place with a lot of horse people.
So now they want to expand Bruce's Field and build a covered arena and more stables to house up to 600 horses. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that?
Tremendous. Because when they built the field, everything was new, original, different design, and it was first class all the way. And the first shows, I'd forgotten how the first show went. They were going to expect maybe 400 horses, and that'd be stretching it. I think they ended up with about 600 horses from all over the country and some from Europe. It just popped, and I think it popped for two different reasons. One, Bruce had a tremendous, I would say, group of friends throughout the world, the horse world, and they wanted to come over and see it. But it was something new. It wasn't a little prairie type thing. You start jumping. They started out right at the very top with the finest of facilities, but they didn't have enough tents or enough stables to put in. No one thought they would need them that fast, but they did, and it went boom all the way up to the top. He would love it. He would love it. I just wish he could be here.
Yeah. I think it's important that people contribute to the foundation to help finish off Bruce's dream. Do you agree?
Oh, yes, because just from what little it's done now, it's brought all sorts of people from all over the world and all over the country into Aiken. The hotels, the restaurants, all the activities have to be going up because there have been so many people coming in. And not only that, Aiken is getting a good tourist thing. People want to see what's happening down in Aiken. It's tremendous. I wish I had something like that. Aiken couldn't go out and buy publicity the way that's bringing it up.
Fantastic. It's great. Anything else you want to add or say about Bruce?
Well, Bruce was a lover of animals. He was not a businessman to any extent. He knew it very well. But if it had to do with animals, he could tell you all about them. And he traveled, and he had a personality that everyone liked. He's never said a bad word about anyone. And I think that what Bruce has done is terrific. You know, not because he's my son, I'm not saying that. But sometimes when I get into a place, I can't make up my mind one way or another. I subconsciously say, what do I think Bruce would do? And how would he like it? Because he could sort out, do things a little bit different. He knew the right answers all of the time, but he never said them until you asked him. Aiken was his home.
Why is it important that people contribute financial contribute money to the foundation to help grow this. Why should people open up and give?
I mean, people from Aiken.
Yeah.
Whoa, it's bringing in now, but it'll get bigger and bigger. An identity in the horse world, and that brings in tourism. Takes care of restaurants. It brings a lot of money in. Now we found out here at Arlington Park the racetrack. After the racetrack burned in '83 or '85 rather, we rebuilt it, and it was those modern tracks in the country, and we had things in that a lot of the tracks don't have now. What it did, it brought in huge amounts of people, not only the curiosity seekers, but people that wanted to race their horses there. Oh, it brought in European horses. So it's really the only international in this country. But we have an awful lot of people go back and forth. Now we were very fortunate on our fifth Arlington Million. There was a horse in there, you have to give me a minute to think of the name, but he was owned by a very famous man over in England. The horse wasn't really that good as far as a racehorse. It was good, but not for that quality. So the odds were quite high. It won. That was Lord Derby's horse. And when Lord Derby won the Arlington Million, which was known all over England and all over Europe, it had to be something. That shoved us up, way up. It wasn't planned, but it turned out that way. But if we're treating people right, and they're having a good time, and they're winning, they're your salesman for you. And if we always keep putting our customers and the suppliers in front of our needs will take care of themselves. And they're doing that down there at Aiken.
Excellent.
We built our entire company on that basis.
And you've done very well.
We're fortunate. I started out with a very small operation.
Tell me about it.
Well, when I got back from the war, my wife's father was in the railway supply business, very small operation. He had a place out in Chicago Heights. I didn't even know about it when we got married. Day after New Year's, he said, "Come on, Sonny, you're coming with me. You're going to work for me now." I didn't have anything to say. I was living at their house. Craig was born, my oldest son. Got out there, and I was just, I looked around, it can't be. Had 38 men and repairing some tank cars and some other railroad freight cars. But it's grown. It's grown quite. We finally traded it out for stock in another car builder. But by that time, we were about the largest car builder in the country. But we were certainly the most profitable because we always concentrated on our customers. Our customers, then our people that were doing the thing. And I just would never let people say, we're going to build morale. I don't give a damn about morale. I did the same thing in the Army. I said, it's pride. If you have the pride in what you're doing, you're going to get it. Morale they can take away from you. All I have to do is say, you don't get that day off. Morale is at the bottom. You might get a little bit of it back, but you don't remember. Pride stays with you all the time.
Excellent.
We took that from Normandy to the end of the war. That's why my company was so successful. When I say the men I commanded.
So, tell me, do you have any memories? I know you're a Purple Heart recipient. Is that true?
Yeah.
And two.
Beg pardon?
Purple Heart, and you had several military awards.
Yeah.
What do you remember most, and what is your fondest memory of being in the military?
Well, I think the fondest memory, the thing I go back about, well, there's many memories. A lot of them I don't even want to remember.
Yes, sir.
So when I got hit down with small arms down on the Moselle after the Moselle River crossing, we were counterattacked, and I didn't have enough people because they were sweeping around the side of us. And I got shot in the small arms. And my headquarters section heard about it. And how they did, I don't know. They came up and got me. Now, this is not normal. But if we didn't have pride in our outfit, that never would have happened. I wasn't the most popular guy. I was the guy that was going to get him home alive. And I think that you build a team by all working together. And I think you have to take care of whatever your objective is. You have to be number one. You can't be number two. Number two doesn't cut it with us. A little bit like boxing. You win or you lose. That's how you live to a great extent in business. But you have to do it in a legitimate way that the people will come back to you again and again. Just to be number one because you push someone else out a little bit on the offside on there, you can't stay there. You're going to get cut off. It's the honesty, the integrity, and the taking care thing. What we always used to say, we will never chase the dollar. We're going to make the dollar chase us. We built our entire company on that basis.
Excellent. That's how I run my business too.
Beg pardon?
That's how I like my business
Of
too.
course it is. It's in all business. Now, when you see a business fail, it may start out with all these fine slogans, but all of a sudden, ego takes over. And when you take ego, you go a little bit over. Pretty soon, you're over the cliff and you don't know it. But when we get anyone with too much ego, we try to take them back down again. And you'll find better people that way. They get angry for a little bit when they say, your ego's killing you. They won't talk to you for a day or two. But then they'll come and thank you for bringing them back to earth.
So you've grown these companies starting from your father-in-law at the train facility, and you built this great company. What are your biggest challenges today?
Well, my biggest challenge now is to live. I want to get a couple more years yet. There's some things I haven't done. That's my biggest challenge. We have never built any of our companies on just straight, what is the profit? We want to know what can we do to service people that someone else isn't doing. That's what brought us up in the railroad industry. Instead of selling just standard type cars like our competitors did, we would go out and see how the car is used. So then we find out the use. How can they save money by a different design, a different type car? We would design that. And when the industry went down, we went up. We would build bigger cars. It could be more useful. Didn't cost as much money. Didn't need as many cars. The customer had to make money on the products he bought from us, or we didn't want to buy it or build it or what.
Yeah.
So that built us into a multi-million-dollar company. We've done that with all the companies we have. Now we're getting to a size that you lose touch with what's really happening out there because you start spreading out far, far too far. It's not spreading out geographically. It's spreading out with the number of people, number of industries, and you get into too many industries. And when you get into too many, you're not good to any one. But you have to focus on a certain segment that you want. And if you can take care of that segment, they're going to take care of you. If you go to everyone, you've got all the competitors out there trying to beat you. Now you start fighting with competitors. You don't want to do that. You want to service customers. I hope.
Yes, sir.
It's worked for us.
So you said you had a few more things that you want to do. What are those few other things that you would like to do?
Right now, I really don't have anything on the schedule. I just want to see our companies provide better ways of service, better equipment, better everything. We should develop new products that are going to serve us. You spend a lot of time, well, not a lot of time, but you spend time putting this up, and it's very modern and very good. But 20 years ago, you wouldn't have all this equipment. You have to stay ahead of the curve. You can't, because a lot of people are so content just to say, well, I'm doing this, but I'm going to do a little better, but I'm always going to be doing this. You have to spread out and develop new things. You make your luck. You don't get it. You have to make it.
How do you want people to remember you?
How did I what?
How do you want people to remember you? When they think of Mr. Duchossois, what do you want them to think?
I've never thought about that. I can't answer that question. I do the best I can. They're going to like it or not like it. And money has nothing to do with it. If you're achieving and you're helping others and things are getting done, that's fine. Look at Bruce. Look at how popular he was when he died. I've never seen so many people at the different areas. There were all these different memorials. He knew he wasn't going to live to see this field go up. He didn't know. I don't believe he knew it was going to be called Bruce's Field. I was with him 2 days before he passed on, and all he could really talk about was he's going to get this field built, and he's going to get the very best people to run it. It's not going to be a rum-dum type thing. And he has, most of the people are very closely associated with the Olympics, but they're very tight with the rest of the industry. It's not a ragtag type thing. It's not, I want to take little Joe out to run horses, not a little bit, or play with him and jump him. It was his life. It was his life. Even when he had his bad accident, you knew about that. If he could get on a horse and just sit, he couldn't show, couldn't do things, but if he could be on a horse, he was happy. He would be just as happy just walking around where the warm-up circle is as it would be in there. In fact, it was probably more because you didn't have the challenge and the excitement in your belly when you're going over those jumps. But he would just be on there. And before he died, he would try to get to all of the shows he could, and he'd just be in the little warm-up ring, sitting on the horse, and he was happy that way. Took his mind off a lot of other things. And he had other people that knew what his condition was. And I can't say they were cozying up. They sincerely wanted to help him. And he, in turn, wanted to help them. When I saw his will and how many people he had on there and how much money he was going to give those people, I was dumbfounded. Here I'm financing him for all of his things. I know where his money was going. But I'd sometimes get into things in the family and into business, and I couldn't quite get the answer in my mind. First thing I ask myself is, what would Bruce have done? I don't always agree with it, but generally I do. If he had a clear, cool mind, he wasn't concerned about anything but helping people. And if they're horse people, so much the better.
Great. Now, can you imagine when Bruce in 7th grade fell in love with horses that you would now have a 600-acre horse farm? Did you ever dream that?
Well, we have it because of Bruce.
Yeah.
Oh, they were showing up here in Barrington. We lived way down in Flossmoor. When we could get a weekend off or something, we would come up here to watch the horse shows and see Bruce. And when finally I said, the highway wasn't in then, I said, we have to get someplace up there. I saw this place. Well, maybe someday I'll go afford to be able to buy something like this. Well, it ended up, we got it anyway. It wasn't 600 acres when we started. It was smaller. Mr. Saragusa, who had Admiral Corporation, lived here. We bought it from him. It was, I think it was about 250 acres I started with, but then I kept adding on everything around. But now there's no place to expand. Now I think we've gotten too big.
Do you spend a lot of time roaming the grounds and
Well, the last 2 years have been places I couldn't get to. And this last summer, I very seldom got out to the racetrack. They would send a briefcase here and come back, and I'm on the phone with them a lot. The year before, when I was in the hospital a lot, year before I spent most of my time hospital or one thing or another. And the year before that, all this other stuff was coming up on me. And I've had heart problems since I had my first heart operation in '81. And these things, it's like fixing an automobile. You aren't preventing that same fix to go down. It's always a temporary thing. But you have to live with it. That's life.
Is there anything else you want to add or talk about before we wrap this up?
Well, I can't really think of anything. All I can say is if Bruce's idea of building that horse park where everyone's going to win, and he can get the people of Aiken all excited about horses again, like they were back maybe 40 years ago when all the barns were there. But that was racehorse people, just straight racehorse. Because Aiken's such a wonderful place, and he's going to bring money into it. So it's not just the track, or not the track, but the show area out there. It's how do you bring people in? And if you bring people in, how do you entertain them? You can get them in, but now how do you get them to come back? And that's what's going to happen out there. They're going to do well. And I sincerely hope that the people of Aiken sort of work a little bit with him, or with Jack and their great gang out there, because they're working for themselves to a degree. For every man, woman, child you bring in, they're going to spend money in the motels, the hotels, the restaurants, clothing, and just having fun. So this is not an isolated thing over here. And Bruce was being very careful that it wouldn't be just another isolated horse park, because there's too many of those around the country now, and they become pesky rather than an asset to the community. He won't do anything out there. He wouldn't do anything. But he had it all laid out before he died. I didn't know it was done. I knew he wanted to have the horse park. I didn't have any idea it was going to be a Bruce's Field. All I knew is that's where the horse park was going to go. And it's located right with the horse group out there. The track, the polo, everything is right there. I think it's a wonderful idea. He was way ahead of me. I think that Bruce would be so pleased, and I think he's actually watching how the people of Aiken react and what they really want, and he's going to make sure that Jack gets the people to, what they want, what they're looking for. I miss Bruce. I miss him terribly. And oftentimes when I get into sort of a can't make up my mind type thing, whether it be business or anything else, I ask myself, what would Bruce do? I don't always win that argument. He gets a lot of them. But he can see through people. He knows the real people from the not-so-real people. And he can get along with all of them, but he pays attention to the real people. And I do hope that the people of Aiken, although so far they've shown that they enjoyed Bruce too, I do hope they'll help this horse park out, because it helps them out. And it's not just a fun type thing. Economically, it's going to be great for Aiken.